Welcome to Movie Galaxy. It's a regular day at Columbia University in New York, and Dr. Alexander Hartdagan is so focused on his work that he completely forgets a date with his girlfriend, Emma. Alexander is a dreamer. Even though it's his first year as an associate professor, he wants the best for his students. Back at his lab, he gets ready for a meeting with his colleague, David Philby. Philby encourages Alexander to be more conservative and to stop obsessing over his inventions and scientific fantasies. Just before reaching his meeting, Alexander gets distracted by a broken car prototype. The owner offers him a ride, but after thinking for a moment, he decides to keep going to his date. When he finally meets Emma, Alexander feels nervous because he wants to ask her to marry him. Despite his nerves, he gives her a ring, and she happily says yes. But their special moment is cut short when a thief comes out of the forest and demands all their valuables. Emma tries to keep her ring, but the robber demands it. They struggle for a moment and the worst happens. Emma is shot at close range, dying in Alexander's arms. 4 years later, Alexander is deeply focused on science, worrying his housekeeper, Mrs. Watchett, and his friend Philby. Philby urges him to snap out of his sadness and move on. Alexander's grief pushes Philby away, but soon Alexander reveals his greatest invention, a time machine. He plans to use it to save Emma. The machine works perfectly, taking him back to the night he lost her. Alexander is overjoyed to see Emma alive again, but he remembers what happened that first night. So instead of walking through the forest, he heads straight for the city. On the way, he ignores the same prototype car he saw before, focusing only on Emma. She notices something strange about him, but he just tells her to go home and stay safe. He says a few final loving words, making sure she won't die that night, and leaves the rest to his past self. Before going, Alexander decides to finally buy Emma the flowers he once promised her. But as he steps into the florist's shop, a car accident happens, and Emma is run over. The heartbroken doctor isn't exactly sad this time. He's confused. He realizes that fate doesn't want him to be with Emma, so he decides to use the time machine again to find a way to fix his problem. This time, he travels to New York in the year 2030, where humans have even managed to live on the moon. At the public library, he meets Vox, a holographic assistant who says he knows everything in the world. Impressed, Alexander asks for information about time travel, but Vox treats it as science fiction. Alexander is even listed among famous names connected to time travel, mostly novelists. Frustrated, the doctor travels further into the future, arriving in 2037, where a disaster has destroyed the whole world, leaving it in ruins. Rescuers try to help the confused Alexander, who asks what happened. They tell him the moon broke apart after explosions on the moon colony, causing huge problems for Earth. Panicked, the doctor runs back to his time machine, hurting himself as he rushes inside. By accident, he sets the machine to travel far into the future. Ages pass, and the world changes completely. He finally arrives in the year 800-2701, where a group of local people find him, take care of his wounds, clean him, and give him food. When he wakes up, he gets dressed and meets one of them, a young boy. Alexander sees that they live in huts built along the sides of the mountains, and the whole tribe is shocked to see him. A girl is able to talk with him, saying she knows the stone language. She explains that everyone learns it as children, but most forget it as they grow up. The village chief wants to throw Alexander into the river to get rid of him, but the girl disagrees. Alexander tells her he is from the past, but she doesn't really understand what he means. She says her name is Mara and tells the others that the stranger is just a wandering fool who hit his head while traveling, helping Alexander get out of trouble. That night, Alexander talks about the customs of his old world, which Mara's brother, Kalen, finds very interesting. They let him sleep with them in their home. Mara tells him their parents left the village, and Alexander is amazed at how much the world has changed since his time. When he looks up at the sky, he sees the moon broken apart, surrounded by a thin ring of space debris. In the forest, an evil presence seems to be approaching, ending at a skull-shaped monument. But it turns out to be Alexander's nightmare, and he wakes up. Kalen also has a nightmare, but his sister comforts him. When Alexander tells Mara about his dream, she understands it completely, saying that everyone there has had the same nightmare before. He asks her about the word Morlock, but Mara says it's only a children's story. The next day, Alexander sees how their society has changed from the past, with the tribe keeping pieces of old cities as keepsakes. Mara asks why he chose to travel through time, and he explains it was to learn why the past can't be changed. Mara doesn't understand his reasons and wonders why anyone would want to do that, but then realizes it's to bring someone back. While riding in a canoe, Alexander asks why there are no older people in the village. Mara only says they left so they wouldn't be stuck in the past. They arrive at a field of windmills, where Kaylin greets them happily and asks for more stories about New York and the people from long ago. Mara and Alexander reach the time machine, and suddenly she asks the doctor to take her little brother to the past, her expression turning fearful. Suddenly, loud shouts and roars in the distance tell Alexander that the village is in danger. The screams get louder, and he sees all the villagers running away. When he gets to the village, Alexander sees a creature that looks like a monkey man and runs for his life. More creatures arrive and begin throwing darts at the villagers. But before he can figure out what it is, he and the other villagers are surrounded by creatures that have crawled out from under the ground. The creatures use their great strength and simple hunting tactics to grab several villagers, covering their mouths so they can't scream. One of them finds Kaylin, and Alexander rushes to help. A chase begins. The doctor hangs from a windmill, and the creature grabs him by the feet. After a struggle, the beast falls a long way to the ground and is knocked out for a few moments. When it wakes up, it climbs back up and pulls the doctor down. Just then, Kaylin arrives and uses fire to scare the creature away. They all escape through a subway tunnel hidden in the sand. When Alexander arrives, he sees Mara being captured and taken away to the creature's hideout. The doctor suggests they go rescue the captives, but the villagers don't understand his idea. They say this is just how life is in their village. Alexander gets angry and scolds them for not fighting back. The village leader explains that the people who fight are always the first to be captured. Alexander then goes to Kaylin, telling him they must do something, but the boy just says that once the creatures take someone, there's nothing that can be done. He then reveals the creatures are called the Morlocks. Despite this, Kaylin talks of a place where the ghosts live, and he and Alexander go there at night. The place turns out to be a room full of old things and several holograms of Vox, who Alexander remembers from a museum visit. Though Vox's software no longer updates automatically, its collected information reveals that there are now two dominant species on Earth, one that lives on the surface and one that lives in the depths. Over the years, Vox has generated a pessimistic consciousness, talking about how overwhelming it is to have all the knowledge in the world but be completely unable to act on it. Vox even remembers meeting Alexander before. He says he knows about the Morlocks because a villager once escaped and stayed with him, telling him everything. The doctor asks the hologram for the truth, but Vox warns him that the truth can be harsh. Vox then tells Alexander that his old friend came from the east of the forest and that he could find answers there. As Alexander goes, he sees the same skull monument from his nightmares. He decides he will go alone to rescue Mara. Kaylin tells him that the Morlocks also took his watch, which Alexander doesn't understand. Alexander climbs down a cliff and finds the entrance to a cave. Inside, he finds advanced machines, much too complex for the people on the surface. He follows two of the creatures through a tunnel system and sees they have a society underground that works with metal. He ends up in a room that looks like a butcher's room. He sees torture tools and a pile of clothes with Mara's necklace on top. After accidentally pulling a lever, he falls into a well filled with human remains. The Morlocks find him, capture him, and lock him in a basement. The basement turns out to be bigger than he expected. He goes down some stairs and finds Mara in a cage, with a figure sitting on a throne in front of her. The figure on the throne is the Uber Morlock, the leader of the tribe. He explains that after the moon's destruction, humanity was split into two groups: those who live on the surface and those who live in the depths below. The Morlocks reproduce in different types. Some are the brain, and others are the muscle, which are easy to control with his telepathic powers. They capture humans from the surface to use as food, but a select few of the best are saved to be used to create new Morlocks. He also says that he is currently using his telepathic powers just to keep the other Morlocks under control. Without him, they would eat all their food in just a few months. The Uber Morlock looks into Alexander's memories and calls him a hypocrite. He points out that Alexander's time traveling is just as unnatural as their lifestyle. Alexander then sees his old watchbox in the back of the room. This makes him remember his old laboratory and the blueprints for the time machine. He has a vision of Emma with the children they could have had, the life he always wanted. The Uber Morlock explains why he can't change the past. Emma's death is the very reason he built the time machine. If she were alive, he would have no reason to build it, creating a paradox. The creature then shows Alexander his time machine, offering it to him. The doctor asks for his watch back. When the Uber Morlock hands it over, Alexander quickly pulls him in, starting a struggle. Alexander manages to activate the time machine in the middle of the fight, but he is no match for the leader's superior strength. Alexander smashes a valve, which distracts the Uber Morlock. The leader gets his neck caught just outside the machine's time field. Time passes quickly for the leader, and he rapidly ages until he turns to dust. Once safe, Alexander sees that the machine's display now reads over 635 million years. The world is destroyed and ruled by Morlocks. So he makes a final decision. He travels back to the year 800,000 to rescue Mara. Using his own watch, he breaks the time travel process, and they escape. He and Mara confront the remaining Morlocks and try to get out of the tunnels. The machine then sends out a powerful wave that ages the creatures, turning them all to dust. The pair escapes just in time. Mara is sad that Alexander lost his machine, but he no longer cares. He has finally put his past behind him. Time passes, and the tribe now enjoys a peaceful life, listening to old stories from Vox. Alexander tells Mara and Kalen about his old laboratory and his friends, Philby and Mrs. Watchett. In a separate moment, Philby and Mrs. Watchett are glad their friend is finally in a better place. Philby offers Mrs. Watchett a job as a housekeeper for him and his wife. She accepts, but only until Mr. Alexander Hartdagan returns. As Philby leaves the house, he honors his friend by throwing his top hat into the air. Thanks for watching our recap video. Don't forget to like and click the subscribe button to help the growth of this channel.